Metazoa Snapshot is a comprehensive org management solution to help maintain, manage, clean up, and optimize your Salesforce orgs. Visual workspaces with intuitive tools help to reduce complexity and simplify workflow. Just drag, drop, and connect. Optimize your org and lower the total cost of ownership by identifying which assets are used the least and cleaning up unused fields and metadata. Quickly restore metadata in disaster recovery situations by scheduling automated backups or taking snapshots on demand. Easily manage releases and migrate metadata and data between sandbox and production environments while automatically recording deployment history. Visualize profiles and permission sets with mass edit and user assignment capabilities. Compare differences in metadata between orgs and over time, and set notifications to trigger alerts when changes occur. Detailed reporting makes it easy to compare user profiles and manage permission sets across multiple orgs. Reduce complexity with comprehensive org management from Metazoa Snapshot for Salesforce.
We were just a bunch of nerdy kids who ignored the haters. We took their ridicule and we built on it. And when some of us gave up, well, we built on that too. Built resilience, built on a mission to make things a little better every day until the users came. Then the haters were VCs who scoffed at our audacity. This just isn't the way things are done. But we kept building. Users turned into teams, turned into companies, running their entire businesses on our apps. Then the software giants came after us. We weren't proven, we weren't fully featured, our radical cloud model wasn't secure. But we built on. And today, as companies adopt the cloud to move faster, teams are finding themselves slowed down by each other's efforts. The skeptics are claiming we'll never develop innovation at scale. But now, DevOps have come to the cloud, ushering in a new era of transformation. Companies can release on demand across hundreds of environments, innovating faster with fewer conflicts and fewer disruptions. There will always be challenges. There will always be naysayers. And we'll build on.
So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the audience here, wherever you are in the world. My name is Emily Patra, and I'm going to talk about the CTA mindset. A little bit about myself. My keyboard doesn't seem to be working, but okay. So I'm the regional vice president. I lead a team of success architects, strategic and technical, in EMEA, and I work at Salesforce. But more importantly, the reason why I'm doing this session today is I'm a certified technical architect, and hence I'm hoping that qualifies me to stand here and talk to you today. Those are my Twitter and LinkedIn handles, so feel free to connect and have a chat later. I would love to hear from you and any feedback that you have for the session later. Okay, so let's get started. Right, so we're talking about CTA mindset. So today I'm going to talk about how being a CTA is not just another certification that you attain, but it is really a mindset and what it takes to think like one, be one, and then be one even beyond when you've done the certification, actually. And just to level set here, that we are all talking about the same CTA. It's an acronym and could have multiple full forms. We're talking about the Certified Technical Architect, which is the pinnacle of certification on the Salesforce architect journey. And it has a reputation of being one of the toughest, but also one of the most respected architect certifications which are out there in the industry today. So let's get started. Congratulations. You all are 60% there if you have climbed through that navigation of pyramid, if you have your systems architect and applications architect certifications already. And if you think all you have to do is just get to that top little triangle there, which is the CTA, review boards. Now, I'm sure in the audience we have a lot of aspiring CTAs, a lot of architects who are halfway through the journey, who maybe are just waiting for their review boards, who maybe are just thinking about whether it's even worth going through that whole pyramid of certifications. And this is for all of you, right? That last bit is the most difficult bit. And that's why the reason I say is you are 60% there once you've done all of that pyramid, apart from that little triangle on the top, is because it takes a lot. It's a huge leap from getting to a systems architect and an applications architect to a certified technical architect review board. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit, in the coming session, is how to think like one and what it takes to bring it all together. But yes, right now, some of the basic prerequisites to get to that last stage is obviously you've passed all your prereqs. You worked on a few good chunky Salesforce projects, hopefully as an architect, where you've seen some good use cases, you've seen big implementations, you've seen the whole project lifecycle. And as a result of your certification journey, you understand the nitty-gritties of Salesforce well as well. You understand the overall architecture well, and you have a good grasp on what Salesforce can and cannot do. So what's next? The review boards. So for the review boards, all you have to do is bring it all together. So I'm going to talk about Legos for a while, and I'm an enthusiast, and I hope some of you in the audience are enthusiasts too. So let's think about each certification as a brick of Lego. Now each one is crafted to perfection. They all fit each other, but they're all crafted individually. And they're all beautiful. I mean, I like Legos. So what does it take? Each certification, you've gained the depth of knowledge. So you've got a Lego brick once you pass the integration certification. You've got a Lego brick once you've passed your sharing and visibility certification. You've got a Lego brick with your data and architecture certification. So now you have all the pieces together. But does anyone in the audience look at one single Lego brick or even a pile of Lego bricks like on my slide right now and say, wow, that's a masterpiece? I hope not, because none of us do. So let's look at what it takes to go from a pile of Lego bricks, which is the pile of certifications that we all go through the pyramid, and then make it into a masterpiece, which is the architecture. This is what it takes. Applying that knowledge, applying the depth of domain knowledge that you've got with each of your domain certifications into a business context, and then crafting something beautiful out of it. And that could be, in this case, a house or a bike. But in our case, it's an actual project architecture. It's an architecture which addresses a business problem. It's an architecture which uncovers the solution to how to bring value to the business using your Salesforce knowledge or your other domain knowledge that you hold. And that is what a CTA does. That is what an architect does. An architect brings together all of that domain knowledge that they've acquired one by one while they're on the journey. And then they're in a position to apply it all to craft something beautiful, to craft something that has value to the business. It's just not individual pieces of knowledge. It's everything that fits together and everything that has relevance in the business context. So here are three simple ways to think about how a technical architect thinks. So we talked about Lego bricks, obviously, and we talked about business context and applying that business context to the knowledge of each domain that you've gathered over the years. The first thing is strategic thinking. So every architect needs to think strategically to get to that end goal, to get to that result. And thinking strategically is literally when you're thinking 10 steps in advance. Think about how the situation that you're currently in could evolve. What are your levers that could change? How could your architecture adapt and be scalable or be maintainable in the future? A classic example of the world we live in right now. There's so many businesses out there who've had to pivot the way they work, the models they are used to, the systems that they have, into a more digitally aware system. Look at this event that we're in today. Like, this is one of its kind, a completely virtual global Salesforce event happening because we really can't get together right now, even if we wanted to. And this is the new normal. And this, if we had a business model or Salesforce architecture, which, well, there was no way of predicting it would be COVID-19, but if we had built it in a way that it was flexible enough, it was strategic, we could change the levers to quickly adapt it to a new business model, it would be strategic. Assess the risk and mitigations, honestly, when you're thinking about, you know, a strategic outcome. And then know the limitations and workarounds. You know, being strategic is not about being perfect, or there are always limitations, budget being one of them. But there are also limitations on what you can do, the kind of skills you have, timelines that you have to meet, etc. So think strategically, you know, the key asset every architect has to go through. The second one is communicate effectively. Now, what do we mean by communicate effectively? Well, all good architects have one thing in common. They have very deep knowledge of the actual technical domain they work on. But it's all in their head. And it's, again, like, you can tell I love Legos, but it's all in their head, just like those Lego bricks. And they have to organize it into a shape and then make sure that they communicate it and they explain it effectively to the relevant audience. So it's not just about knowing the solution or architecting a solution in your head. The most important thing is, do your stakeholders understand what you're trying to tell them? And this is very important, as you know that, well, the knowledge of the solution is no good if the developer doesn't understand and can't implement it, or the business stakeholder does not understand what value it brings to the business and how your architecture meets their strategic needs or their business needs at that point in time. So be it developers or business leaders, communicating in context and in the language of your audience is the key to being a world-class architect. And the third simple one, always see the big picture. Now, know the difference between a good architect and a developer. The architect always has an eye on the big picture, the end results, whereas a developer must add, and rightly so, the depth of knowledge to that idea. So while a developer might only work on a few modules of an architecture, they go deep into the details because they need to implement it. Whereas an architect needs to know where each piece fits in to form that big picture, to get to the right results, and to keep focused in the right direction that the solution is headed in. So in short, these three things are, you know, how to think, how to have a CTA mindset. Think strategically, communicate effectively, and see the big picture. Okay, going on to the next one. Okay, so now that you know what it takes, you know, to bring together the pieces and the three simple mantras of thinking like an architect, what do you do for the review boards? Well, review boards are a form of exam. And when you get to that point, you practice. And there's only one mantra: you practice. You think strategically, you keep the big picture in mind, you communicate effectively, and you practice doing all of that with your peers. You practice doing all of that with different coaches. You practice it with yourself in the mirror. And even better, my top tip is get a coach or multiple coaches. See anyone who's ready to volunteer to listen to you, to sit there and listen to you. I used a lot of that when I was going through my review boards. I asked colleagues, I asked CTAs if I could, you know, get my hand on one. I was lucky enough to have a few good, coaches who were already CTAs, and everybody had a very different feedback to give me. Each one of them came out with a feedback which was from a very different perspective. Some were from a communication perspective, some were from an architecture perspective, and some were from a very technical perspective. And all of these aspects are very important, especially when you're going for your review boards. So what's beyond CTA, you say? Well, beyond CTA is keeping the same mindset. So again, at the start of this presentation, what I said was CTA is not an exam. And even though we do have a review board and we do get a certification at the end of it, the grill that we go through in going through that whole, examination and certification, it's enough to actually change the way we think. It's enough to give us that perspective that then we apply every day on our projects, in the work, in everyday interactions that we have at work. And hence, I say it is not an exam at all, it's a mindset. Beyond CTA, what you do is you keep having that growth mindset.
5 minutes, Emily.
Sure, thanks. You keep that learning new things. You keep expanding your domain knowledge, and you acknowledge feedback, because feedback is a gift, and anyone who's ready to give you that gift is great. It's your friend, and always makes you better the next time. So with that, I would like to leave you again with my final thought, is that do not think CTA as a certification. It is a mindset that you need to get into, and which you will be in way beyond passing the review boards. So with that, thank you. And I would like to take any questions, if any. Okay, I think there is a question there saying, how long did you take to prepare for the final 40%? Yeah, great question. It took me about 9 months to prepare, I think, from the time where I was giving my final certification, domain certification, to the time I actually passed my review board. So it is quite a good chunk of time.
So there's another great question, and I'm going to come on video that's posted. Do you need to know how to code to get the CTA certification? And I had the same question, as I'm not a developer, but in order to get the CTA exam, you have to pass the PD1 exam, which you have to know how to write code.
Yeah.
So what is it? Like, I can't write code. I'm not so sure if my brains can write code, but yet I can't get to the certification because I don't know how to code. So it's a great question if you can help answer.
So you don't need to be an ace developer to be a CTA. I can assure you I'm not. And I think the PD exam is more about understanding the structure of Apex. And it is quite important, because unless you understand a little bit about how Apex works, you will not be able to understand the nitty-gritties of integrations, the patterns, how they're implemented in Salesforce APIs, etc. So I guess a little bit of rigor there is, it helps you, but to be an architect and to be a CTA and beyond, do you need to really be an ace Apex code developer? I think not. I do understand that that is one certification, which is a prerequisite and we need to pass. So yeah, it was tough, even for me, yes.
Okay, so there's a couple more questions. You said you got a mentor. How is it possible to find a mentor without nagging them? Any pointers on how to do that? And then a second question is, any specific platforms or resources you found helpful we can use?
So the mentor question first. There are a lot of CTAs out there who understand what it takes and how difficult it's been to get through the journey who are more than willing to give back to the community. And, we do volunteer. I know I volunteer quite a lot. Easy way to do it is, if your organization has any CTAs, approach them. What I did was I fixed up, that is towards the last 6 weeks, just before my review boards, I fixed up 1.5 hours of, 2 hours of my time with a coach every weekend or every Friday evening to run through a scenario. And I used to prepare. I used to just take the time to present the scenario, get feedback, and then go back and reflect over the feedback I got over the weekend. So that's one way of getting a mentor. If you don't have the privilege of having a CTA around you, or someone in your organization who can help you, reach out to the community. I mean, there's some good work being done on the Trailblazer community. Reach out. I'm sure someone will be willing to help you with your final stages of the prep. The idea is, if you show you're willing and you come in with the right preparation, I'm sure we'll be able to help you out.